Good afternoon. It's just gone 12, everybody. So, just out of interest, how many people here saw the launch of the Network Media Incubator last year? Anybody? Clive? Mike? Yeah, lots of the usual suspects. So I think it was announced yes on Saturday. So it's been going for 368 days. But obviously quite a few people want to know what this is about. So you will see a lot of IP here in IBC this year. There's a last night the EBU VRT Live IP project won the IBC prize for their studio, which you can go and see over in Hall 8. It's an excellent piece of work. Shows that it really is possible to start doing IP at IBC. That is built on the first generation of technology, so it is really SDI over IP. So you're taking the SDI signals and sending that over RTP. But it's definitely a good show of the way forward. So if you look at the wider potential of IP, though, there's quite a lot beyond just changing to a new type of infrastructure. There's the ability to support different formats, to allow, as we do HDR, high frame rate, 8K, 4K, 6K, 16K, etc. Adopt them more straightforwardly by not having to rely on new types of connector, new types of SDI, etc. You've got the flexibility of location that is it can be provided through being able to put things where you want it on your production. So, for instance, BBC a couple of years ago did a fairly major experiment by doing a distributed production at the Commonwealth Games, where we had a UHD production made over three sites across the UK, linked together by a high-speed network. So showing the potential there. As we move more and more into cloud-based provisioning, you'll have more and more need to automate things and spin up resources in a data center on your premises or in another provider. So more automation required, made easier through IP. The other thing is, of course, everything ends up on a computer eventually, so you need to have a simple way, a frictionless way to go from glass to glass. That's what people normally say. So if you look at what's happened at the moment, plenty of things have happened at the moment with first generation hardware. SMPTE 2022-6 is becoming more mainstream now. Like I say, VRT's Live IP Sandbox won a prize last night. But you'll also notice there's talk now about other things. So there's TR03 also, which is going to be the next standard, which will be SMPTE 2110. So that is elemental streams, audio, video, data kept separate. That's what you want to do in the studio. You want to keep things separate and put them together as you would require them. So there's progress there, but there's also a lot of things missing as well. So just talk. So people have probably seen this before. Some people have seen this, I guess. Do we have a point on here? That one? Nope. Yes, that is the. Which one's the pointer? Okay, that's what I pressed on it. Oh, good. I will do without the pointer. So this is where we are now. SDI over IP. We're moving into the elementary flows area. but there's more to do. There's the need to have more automation and virtualization, so to make this sort of vision of an on-demand creation of your production facilities really happen. So one of the first things we need to do on that is to I'm going to skip this one here, to fill in some of the missing parts of the jigsaw here that are required. So a strong approach to identity, so you can create something and have it recognized downstream. You don't have to have lots of complicated procedures and boxes to make sure to join things up. What we want is to have the identity of everything you capture in the studio or on location preserved through to the end. And as well as the identity, to capture the timing as well. So you can present things in sync. And importantly, to be able to use things when they're on a network, they might be spun up on a virtual machine. You've got to be able to find them and then connect them together. So a couple of new things there. So to make all this happen, so like we say, a year ago, we had the launch of the incubator project. So the idea of this is to enable groups of well-intentioned, like-minded, forward-thinking companies to come together to try out some of these missing ideas, missing parts of the jigsaw. So it's guided by the Joint Task Force Reference Architecture, which put up there. And we now have about 150 members from 45 organizations, and probably over half of those are actually fairly active as well and have done practical work. One of the reasons for the success is that rather than it being a paper-based exercise, people work together on trial specifications and come together at about 3-4 month intervals for practical workshops. I'll come back to that one in a minute. I'll show you some of these workshops. So we've had 3 workshops so far. First one was in London in January, hosted by the BBC. Second one was organised by BBC and hosted in a location in Salford, close to where we are. And the third one was by our colleagues at Reidel. So Arne will be talking about in a bit. And we've had a lot of people working on these so far. And the output of this is these open specifications. You may have heard of, you may have seen the word NMOS around on people's booths. NMOS, Network Media Open Specification. The thing that people are talking about most is a standard way of being able to plug something into the network, have it register itself with the network, and then applications find it. So as an example of that, consider this is a traditional way of working. You have cameras plugging into SDI matrix, a production switcher, viewers, and so on. Once we go to the IP world, they plug into the network fabric, and in the NMOS terminology, these are called, the things that plug in are called nodes, and the things that are called devices. So you may have a node that has multiple devices on. For instance, you might have a computer that is running several different transcoders, live transcoders, or so on. So we spend a lot of time getting the terminology right here. That's quite an important thing. So to make that work, you need to be able to find things, and every node registers its information with this thing called the registry. So a registry is basically just a database of what's on the network, and you can have these dotted about the place. You can have them; they will talk to each other and be up to date. So even if you've got different locations, you'll be able to see what's available in different locations. Technical details, the way this works is using HTTP and WebSockets and JSON under the hood. to find the registry itself, it can optionally announce itself using DNSSD, which is probably best known as Apple's Bonjour system. And if you've only got two things and a cable between them, they will work in another mode where they talk directly with DNSSD, like in a sort of peer-to-peer case. So we thought about scaling it up and scaling it down. Along with this, we're also doing work on synchronization. So there's a specification for how you put identity and timestamps into your streams. That's going to be increasingly important in the future. So watch this space on that one. So that is a work in progress specification. So back to this slide again. So for the workshops we've done, we've used this discovery protocol. It's called ISO4. We're using it with TR03 and AES67 streams. Also recently compressed H.264 streams and SDI over IP 2022-6 streams as well. We're also using PTP to distribute the timing signal around the network. So as you will see, we've got a lot of people now have worked in the project. We've got 26 companies. Because NMOS is actually an open standard, it's available on GitHub. Other people have downloaded it, and so we've had another 3 or 4 companies implement it outside the incubator, and it's bringing the total to about 30 in all, which I think is pretty good for the first year. Here's some pictures. This was from the second workshop, so lots of people sitting in, not most exciting pictures, lots of people sitting in front of laptops. This thing here is quite interesting. So this was done by our project partners from Atos BNCS. So this is a live registry browser, so you can see what is on the network. This is a diagnostic. It's quite pretty little, using a network monitoring protocol called SFlow, so you can see what's happening on the network. Here are some cables, some Cat5 cables and some fiber. It's not just computers, so people have got boards at the top there. This is the most recent workshop that Arne will be talking about more, so I'll let him do that in a minute. And this is the work that is happening now. So we have, following the success on discovery, and I'll come back to that in a minute, we're doing work on, we're kicking off work on a formal connection management API. So this will be a way of telling a device how to connect to other devices at the logical level. So it doesn't depend on whether you're using multicast with IGMP, whether you're using some sort of software-defined networking, some other sort of protocol. The main thing is you can say, I've got this camera and I want to connect it to this screen. Please do that, and it's to define a language to do that, and it will be a nice web-friendly HTTP-based approach. And then alongside that, we're also looking at how that will map to the network control layer. So to make all this clear, this is on the AMWA website. There's a thing called an architectural sprint document that the idea is it helps to clarify the different terminology here and be consistent in terminology. This is becoming increasingly important because the word source or stream or node means different things to different people. Now, I've borrowed this slide from Brad Gilmer, so I'm not quite sure who I thought was going to be here, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to build up. But you may wonder how this all fits in together in the future. So there's lots of organizations involved, and there's a flow from left to right of requirements through to architectures, through to actual specifications. So the actual things at the end are the documents, the AMWA NMOS documents, and then all the SMPTE range of specifications for the lower level, so the transport type documents. So it's a consistent but converged approach to the standards of the future. Oh, and then there are groups such as AIMS that are looking at the market-based advocacy. Very importantly, go to Hall 8 over the other side, stand D10. We have about 30, 40 different, what is that? That is 35 companies coming together to show interoperability in 3 areas for transport, both multiplexed and elemental, timing, so harmonization of the approaches to PCP and interoperability there, and we've also got a live demonstration of discovery and registration over on the left-hand side of that stand there. So part 1 of the conclusions are that we've got a good start on IP, but there's a fair bit more to do than just getting the wire formats right. So this is where we want to have a approach similar to how the internet has grown, and this is where the work of AMWA Incubator and the Network Media Open Specifications are helping. So at this point here, I'd like to hand over to Arne from Reidel to talk a bit more about the last workshop and also what it means to Reidel as a manufacturer, about how this work is going.
Thanks.
I'll stop talking now.
Thank you. So, as Pete said, we quite recently hosted the 3rd workshop, the end of phase 2, which included the specification for SMT 2022. And because there was quite a lot of companies already in participating in the AMWA, we just needed a lot of space and a lot of infrastructure, and we found it a good idea to support the project. For us as Reidel, if you look at a intercom system, a classic intercom system with baseband, it's quite obvious that you know where your devices are, how to identify them, because each device has one particular in and output on your intercom matrix. So this is just not a real installation, but you have headsets for camera controllers and desktop panels for the directors, shaders, audio mixers. And you might have third-party audio streams coming into your intercom matrix. Now the move to, you've got separated systems, and it's an easy setup, but it's of course inflexible, because once you set it up, then you don't want to change the cabling all the time. So everyone is moving to a networked media environment. So you plug everything in a switch, so you have more flexibility, and of course new possibilities to change from one setup to another setup. So maybe one day you're doing a news production, and you have different people working on your intercom panels. They log in and load a setup for their names, the people they talk to. The next day you load a different setup for another show, and you can change, you reroute your whole system without plugging new cables. So that's the whole idea behind IP, next to reducing cabling costs. But of course you have new challenges, because when you plug everything in switch, you don't have any means to identify your devices, to configure them. You need to type in IP addresses and stuff, and you also have the problem of the non-deterministic network. So I just want to compare two approaches that we are working in. You have AVB on one side, and you have all the parts that you need for a running system. So you need stream reservation to have a deterministic way of routing your audio. You've got that in AVB, and for transport you've got the 1722 For timing, that's the GPTP. For discovery and for connection management, you've got IEEE 1722.1. So it's a complete package that includes everything you need in a networked environment to have an easy setup. Unfortunately, also for us, no one is using AVB. You need special switches that support all these standards. So as you know, everyone is moving to layer 3 IP. And in the audio world, that's AES67 as the main standard that's used. Also now when the video broadcast AV world is going to IP, AES67 is part of TR03, TR04, and the upcoming standard 702110. So there you need the same parts for a running system. As of today, there is nothing that really does the same as the stream reservation protocol. So you have best effort in your network. There are some. There's a DetNet project. There's a lot of SDN talk going on, but right now for us, as to set up a stream reservation, there's no control protocol or something. For transport, the basis of AES67 are the classic RFCs that have been around for a while. For timing, we have IEEE 1588, or better known as PTP. And then it continues with some question marks for discovery. Until now, we have Bonjour in some applications, SAP in other applications, and for connection management, you also have different approaches. So right now in the audio world, you end up with different controllers for different setups, for your Ravenna, for your Dante, for your Livewire Plus. And so the conclusion is AVB is a whole package, but no one is doing it. That's clear. And here, for ease of use, there's a gap. So everyone has now settled to AES67, or that's what we think. Also the video devices send AES67 as a separate audio flow, but for ease of use, you need something more. So if we look at the same setup as before, we now include NMOS nodes in all our devices, so that when you plug them together, you easily discover them in the network and then also can connect them. And you can connect third-party devices as if they support NMOS, you can easily include them in your intercom system. And the big advantage for us is now with TR03 and other people also doing NMOS work, we can easily include the camera intercom signal into our intercom, or our Reidel also does video networking devices. We are also doing 7022 and TR03. So we can also easily include those signals into our system with any NMOS controller like the ATOS one, or we also working on a NMOS browser, NMOS connection management. So NMOS, for us, NMOS is filling the gaps, and the big topic for us is it brings the broadcast AV world also into the pure audio world. So because in the audio world, like I said, it's still not really clear, and our hope is that this NMOS work could also bring that world in, so that you have all the audio processing devices, audio mixers in the same environment, and this really brings the flexibility for the end customer. So NMOS for us can fill the gaps, and as you know, the roadmap of AIMS also now included the ISO4, which is the discovery and registration part of NMOS. And this also shows us that all these companies that are AIMS members, that show their products in the interop zone, they slowly also implement NMOS. So we have about 10 people active in the NMOS browser in the interop zone, and this is then now included in the roadmap. And what's next is the connection management and SDN control. So that's why if you step back, there's work done on an SDN API that can also be included in the NMOS API, which uses the same mechanisms. The discovery part is finished, and like Pete said, now the next sprint is working on the connection management part, and there's also proposals for control. So controlling your audio level, controlling matrix points, or controlling color correction. If that is all possible with NMOS, this would be a unified third-party control protocol for us. Yeah, part 2. Great opportunity to include the AES67 world, which has been around for a couple of years, into broadcast with TR03 and 2110. We've got working implementations running in the interop zone. You can have a look, and also the connection management is working. We show that we have different subnets, different registries. So all the devices in the transport rack can also be found in the DNR rack, which is not possible with other discovery mechanisms that rely purely on MDNS. That's the key point, the scalability with NMOS. BBC is also showing a demo at your booth. And if you come to our booth, you can also see a peer-to-peer network. So we have 2 video devices with SMPTE 2022. And there's no NMOS registry. If you plug them in, they just find themselves peer-to-peer, and you can connect the signal, disconnect it. And so for us, we support both modes. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, we can open it out to